All right, so Ernie and Grok 4.5 are two very different bets on where AI goes next, and I ran them through 4 real tests to find out which one actually holds up. The wildest thing I found. Ernie's input tokens cost 7 cents per million, Grok 4.5 costs $2, and that's a 28 times gap. Both of these models are getting serious attention right now, and picking the wrong one could cost you a lot of money or break your product entirely. So I'm comparing Ernie versus Grok 4.5 across 4 tests: Chinese language accuracy, API pricing, real-time search, and every fact I use is sourced with no vendor spin. And honestly, the winner isn't who you'd expect. One of these models has a confirmed blocked topic list that could completely kill your research workflow, and the other has a pricing gap so big it changes the unit economics of your whole app. So who is this comparison actually for? Developers building a Chinese language product, researchers who need uncensored web access, or anyone trying to figure out which API won't blow up their budget? Get this wrong and you're looking at blocked queries, unusable outputs, or a token build that scales way faster than you planned. Test 1, Chinese language and cultural accuracy. You ship a product to Chinese users and the model gets the nuance slightly off, not catastrophically wrong, just a little tone deaf or culturally flat. And users notice immediately, they churn, and that's the real cost. Most Western models genuinely struggle with this. And the gap shows up fast. I went through every source data point I could find on this, and honestly, it's pretty one-sided. Community benchmarks rated Ernie number 1 for Chinese linguistic nuance, Boab review. Gave Ernie 4.0 turbo 5 stars on Chinese cultural understanding. An academic study found Ernie generates fewer negative stereotypes than Quinn, and Grok 4.5 has 0 published data on Chinese language performance. Ernie takes test 1, and it wasn't close. I was expecting at least some data on Grok 4.5's Chinese performance, and what I got was a complete blank. Ernie's purpose-built for the language. And every sourced benchmark backs that up, though on English, it noticeably lags. So that's 1 for Ernie, 0 for Grok 4.5. Test 2, API cost and rate limits. What actually happens when you get this wrong is you build your product, test it, everything looks fine. You scale up, and suddenly your token costs are 28 times higher than you budgeted. And that's not a rounding error, that's a business model problem. With these two models, the pricing gap is genuinely that extreme. What I found here is pretty wild. Ernie 4.5, 21 billion comes in at 7 cents per million input tokens. Grok 4.5 is $2 per million input tokens, confirmed by independent sources on the same per million basis. And Grok 4.5 output tokens run $6 per million, while Ernie's output pricing I couldn't find published anywhere. So the full task cost comparison isn't possible yet. And that's a real caveat worth keeping in mind. Now, I want to be honest about this before calling a winner. Ernie's rate limits aren't published, so you can't compare throughput. And both models have access friction. Ernie needs a Baidu Qianfan sign-up and sometimes a mainland phone number, while Grok 4.5 has no EU access until mid-2026. So the 28 times price gap is real, but the total cost of integration might be closer than the per token number suggests. On input token cost, Ernie wins this one. And I wasn't expecting the gap to be this dramatic. I thought maybe 2 or 3 times cheaper, and it's 28 times cheaper on input. So for high volume workloads, that's not a marginal advantage. That's a completely different cost structure. Ernie takes test 2, which puts it at 2 for Ernie, 0 for Grok 4.5. Test 3, real-time web search integration. The failure mode here is pretty specific. You ask your AI tool about something that happened last week, and it either makes something up or pulls from a stale index. And for a global news monitoring tool, that's a disaster. For a China market product, the failure looks different, but it's just as bad. And which search index you're grounded in matters a lot. What surprised me here is how different these two setups actually are. Ernie pulls from Baidu Search and Baidu Maps and gets a 5-star rating for Chinese language factual grounding, while Grok 4.5 ships with global web search and Expo search built in as native server-side tools built per call. I was expecting a direct comparison, and what I got was 2 completely different search products aimed at different audiences. Honestly, this is where a head-to-head verdict gets kind of tricky. These two models aren't indexing the same content. Ernie dominates for Chinese market queries, and Grok 4.5 covers global news and real-time social signals that Ernie can't touch. So which search covers the content your users actually need depends entirely on your audience, and that's really the only way to call it. This one's a tie, and I'll be honest, I was expecting Grok 4.5 to take it cleanly because of the global reach. But Ernie's Baidu grounding is genuinely strong for what it does, and you can't fairly score a Chinese index against the global one. So we're calling it a draw, and that puts us at Ernie 2, Grok 4.50, with 1 tied. Test 4, censorship and content restrictions. And this one's not abstract. You're mid-research, you ask about a political event, and the model either restarts the conversation or deflects entirely with no warning and no partial answer. The chat just resets. That's a real thing that happens with Ernie, and it's documented, not speculation. The sourced evidence here is pretty clear-cut. BDC live testing confirmed Ernie blocks Tiananmen Square, Xinjiang, Tibet, and name political figures, and it doesn't soften the answer, it deflects or reboots the chat entirely. Grok 4.5 has community-reported concerns about political nudging from a Hacker News thread, but there's no confirmed blocked topic list from any press source. And that's a real difference in severity. Grok 4.5 takes test 4, and I want to be clear about what that actually means. I was expecting both models to have documented restrictions, but Ernie's blocks are confirmed by BBC and academic sources, while Grok 4.5's concerns come from a single Hacker News thread. And that's not the same thing. So the score now sits at Ernie 2, Grok 4.5 1, with 1 tied. So here's where Ernie is the clear winner. Chinese linguistic nuance and cultural accuracy. Every sourced benchmark puts it at the top, and no Western model comes close. Input token cost at 7 cents per million versus $2 is a 28 times gap that completely changes the math on high volume Chinese language workloads. And for China market factual queries via Baidu ecosystem integration, nothing else matches it. And here's where Grok 4.5 wins. Content freedom, no confirmed blocked topic list versus Ernie's extensively documented mainland political guardrails, global real-time search. Native web search plus X-post grounding covers news and social signals Ernie simply can't reach. Pricing transparency, $2 input, $6 output per million tokens with 150 RPS and 50 million tokens per minute, all confirmed by independent press. Okay, so here's the honest verdict. I went into this expecting a real competition, and what I found is that these two models aren't really competing for the same user at all. If you're building for Chinese language audiences or running high volume Chinese market workloads, Ernie is the pick, full stop. And if you need uncensored research, global real-time search, or transparent API pricing for an international product, Grok 4.5 is the one.